I just want to go over what events are coming up in the next month and a half. So obviously we have tonight's event. Sunday, we're going to do a photo walk at Clodmore. So I plan to be there around 9, but feel free to go anytime you want. It can be on your own. It's really just to help people just plan things to get out. And then the last day to submit for Mid-Atlantic Photo Visions is next week. So Geff would like everyone to do it ASAP, like maybe today, tomorrow.
And I think it's a little quieter here now.
Oh,
but,
go ahead. Yeah.
Basically, if you have any questions about an image, I would get it into like today or tomorrow. So, for example, if you're not sure if your bird image is has any hand of man in it,
it won't affect the presentation.
Then get it in now, just so that we can go through the final calling of it. If you enter in like on the 12th, if your image is rejected, then you don't have a chance to kind of put another image in. So get them in now, and don't forget to sign up for the free lectures that are. If you go to the Nature Vision for the Mid-Atlantic Photo Expo website, you'll be able to have the links to go sign up for the free lectures that we're having in November.
Mm-hmm. I got my tickets. It's easy, just like Eventbrite, right? It's Eventbrite.
It's Eventbrite.
Yeah, super easy.
When you say free lectures, are you talking about the actual, like the keynotes, or are those not free?
No, both. We have two. One by Rick Salmon, one by Chrissy Odom. They're both free. And the Chrissy Odom lecture is the keynote. So that will be the one where we announce the winners of the competition. The Rick Salmon is like earlier in the day. And forgive me, I'm just kind of like driving home right now, so from work. So I don't have everything in front of me. But the Rick Salmon one is earlier in the day. The Chrissy Odom, I believe, starts at 6:30 or 7. But that will be the one where we announce the winners, and then we'll have her presentation.
Okay.
So you posted the information and the links and everything in Yahoo, whatever it's called, Yahoo. So I transferred that over to Facebook. So if anybody needs links to that, it's in Facebook. Carolyn was just asking about that.
And it's a team effort, and Denise can corrected my typos.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. All right. So then our next event coming up after that will be our competition. So that's going to be the 24th. And the folders are exactly the way we did it last season. So, and they're ready to go. So feel free to start uploading your stuff into the competition folders. And it's the typical summer theme, basically what you did this summer, except it's going to be from the beginning of COVID through summer, so that you can do a representation of whatever you've been working on. And then our next speaker is going to be the 8th of October, and that's Taylor Jackson. He's a wedding photographer. So I thought that was an interesting topic, because we don't really talk about specific things like that, but he's out of Canada, and I've been following him for a long time, and he's actually offered to do it for us for free. He's really a nice guy. But he does a lot of online educational series and stuff like that. And then our next event that I just posted in Meetup is the October photo meetup is going to be at Balls Bluff, and John Taper is going to lead that. So you'll have a little bit more hiking and battlefield pictures and stuff. The one this Sunday is Clodmore. It's more nature paths and things like that. So real easy walk at Clodmore. And then I noticed that a lot of people are already joining, so that's really nice. So making Nikki work really hard, I'm sure, keeping up with all the emails. And but just make sure when you fill out the form, the process is just send us a quick email to say that you've paid and you're legitimate, so that we know to go look and everything. And Jen Gonzalez is working on updating the website. We've already updated it enough with like the information for the season, but she's going to update the registration part of it. She's researching that. So hopefully we'll have that in the next month or so. So it'll be a little bit easier to join and invite people to join. And then, like I said, I've been updating meetups. We'll have something every month. And then I also sent out an email on the 1st. I hope everybody got it. That was on the email list last season. And with all the links to all the groups that we use and all the upcoming things. So that's all I have, I think. Does anybody else think of anything? Because my vice president, I don't think, is here to remind me of anything. Oh, we did have a meeting, like we had a board meeting, so we were able to go over everything. And another thing we were thinking about doing was a larger field trip. So we might do put that information out in the next couple weeks. So, sorry, I think Denise is talking to me. Oh, she's talking to the group. All right, so you can open up the chat if you want to watch the chat, and then
yeah, sorry,
that's okay.
I was on mute. Denise sent out an email that just before we get started on me, a lot of you know, or most of you know, that have known me for years and have been seeing my presentations, is that I have a black and white action, and I've actually created a new one, which is even, I think personally, better and more dramatic in the way it renders the image, and it's Lightroom and Photoshop. And so you're welcome. You can see my email address in the chat box on Zoom. Please send me an email, and I'll be happy to send you. Let me know if you want Photoshop or Lightroom or both, and I'll be happy to send you that new preset to play with. And I'll show you this evening how it works and what it looks like, and when we process a couple of pictures. So. Awesome. Thanks, Sam. I'm going to mute myself again and let you finish.
Actually, that was the end of my topics. So I was actually just going to introduce you. Do you want to go ahead and a lot of people already know Geff. Geff and Denise have been part of the club forever. And I don't know, how many years were you part of the club before I joined? I've been in for like 10 years.
Oh my gosh. I started on the second year the club started, which is about 19 years ago, 18 years ago.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So our club is 20 years old. We didn't even have like
almost 20, yeah. Oh, when we started, we were like 4 people.
Yeah.
At a library in Ashburn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And well, that's great. Yeah. So Jeff's pretty well known for black and white photography, even though he admitted he hasn't been doing much lately, but I think that's because he has such an overwhelming beauty around him of nature. It's kind of hard to take a beautiful
COVID.
sunset. Well, no, I mean, you walk outside, it's like you can't take a black and white sunset. You know? What's the point? But
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So anyway, I'll just let you go ahead and get started. And
alrighty.
Share your screen, and then I'm going to mute myself, and that's it.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. Those that requested me, I very much appreciate it. I'm first time doing Zoom in a presentation, so my technical advisor, who you know as my better half, Denise, may need to jump in occasionally because this is all new to me. I'm not technically savvy on the computer part, but anyway, tonight I'm going to give you a presentation that is kind of modified. The people have seen my presentations before, and you'll be happy to hear it's a lot shorter. Yay, good news. And it's got a bunch of different pictures. A couple of pictures are the same, but kind of the same theme, but a lot shorter and condensed. And then we'll take some questions after that, and then I'm going to go ahead and process 2 or 3 pictures in black and white, kind of the way I do it, and show you several options in the way I do it, because I know perhaps not all of you use Lightroom and Photoshop. I use Lightroom and Photoshop, so I'll do probably most of the processing in Photoshop, just for the people that because that's, you know, the most, what most people use. And also, I don't do a whole lot of processing lighting. It's more for the cataloging and that sort of thing. But anyway, I'll get to that part once I've started my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and hopefully nothing blows up. So bear with me. So I'm going to hit play. Does everyone see it? Is it working? No?
Share your screen.
Oh, for crying out loud. Hang on a minute. So what I got to do now?
Share screen.
Go back to there.
Okay, go back to Zoom. Share screen. Let's disable the how you share it.
You have to let him share it.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, so it's Sam's fault.
All right, go ahead.
Hit okay. Now share again.
Zoom has put in a lot of default security lately.
Okay.
Awesome.
Now I'm just going to look over at Denise's.
Yeah, it's working.
It's working. Everyone can see it. It just says black and white photography. Give a thumbs up.
Looks great.
Okay, great. So tonight's talk obviously is on black and white because apparently that's what I do a lot. But even though I do love color now too. But anyway, we'll begin about black and white photography. So I'm just going to go over some general, I'm going to show you some samples of why I think black and white photography is so much more, has so much more impact than color in certain things. And just some ideas, things to keep an eye out while photographing and thinking about and trying to produce good black and white photography. And once we're done with that, again, like I said, later on, we'll go ahead and process a few photos. So let's begin on this. So I'm going to start with a quote that people have seen this before. They see it, but hopefully I put in some new photographs. But when you photograph people in color, you photograph their clothes. But when you photograph people in black and white, you photograph their souls. And I think that's one of the most, I think it's one of the most amazing quotes you can do about black and white. It really does kind of tell you what black and white photography is all about. Because I mean, you know, this day and age, we're so bombarded with color every day. You know, we see color, we watch TV in color, we take pictures and every, you know, ads, everything, advertising, magazines are all in color. There's something special about black and white photography. And black and white photography, I mean, photography started in black and white, which is, you know, and to me, that's always been special. And when I started my photography, when I was, you know, 13 years of age, it was film and it was in black and white. And I've loved black and white ever since. And to me, that, yeah, I don't think it'll ever change. I think black and white, it actually is becoming more and more popular now. So let's talk about visualizing in black and white. Sorry, I'm going to look at this screen. I have the two screens. So let me look at this because apparently you can see me. So learning to evaluate the scene determines whether it's best rendered in black and white. So I'm going to start with some picture samples. This first one is from the Tetons that Denise and I went about 2 months ago. I really wish I'd learned to do a straight horizon on this one for the first part, but it is what it is. Anyway, so this image, I knew what I wanted to do with this photograph. It's got low contrast, the sky is boring because it's a blue sky. But one thing I will say about blue skies, don't be afraid of blue skies when it comes to black and white photography, because you can do a lot with the skies in black and white. And I think, to me, landscapes in black and white really come alive. And I'll see what you can do from this image compared to the final image in black and white. And these, I had pre-visualized this, and I knew that what I wanted to do. I was going to photograph most of the Tetons in black and white. And actually, it turned out I was probably about 50-50 because the color was so beautiful there. But I really enjoyed photographing in black and white, and I really kind of knew what I wanted to see in black and white when I had the final images processed. So again, this is an example of the before and the after in black and white. And I'm actually going to go ahead and later on, when we process, I'm going to process this image for you and show you different ways that you can get that dark in the sky, the gradation in the sky, and just make it pop and have more of a contrast. The next one, sitting on the deck with a lens, and I saw a little bee on Denise's flower, and I just thought it was really cute. He climbed actually from the middle all the way up to the top. And I think I called the image on Facebook "Reaching the Summit." but it's got a, you know, it's in kind of an odd color background. It's kind of dull. The contrast isn't so great. I kind of liked it in color. Yeah, I could have made it pop a little more. Wasn't particularly happy with the background on this one. So I knew I could really bring it into black and white and make it pop. And the final image I got from that was this one, which I already think it almost has like a 3D effect in this. And I loved how the background got really nice and dark. And I added some clarity and that sort of thing to the image. It really made the bee pop, and it looks like he's climbing that flower mountain. And I loved how it brought out the details and the petals, and that's the kind of thing that you can really get in black and white, as you can see from the original compared to this. Obviously, it was cropped and that sort of thing, which I do, you know, in post. But I think from a black and white standpoint, I think there's so much more contrast, there's so much more pop to this image, and I think it just brings it. It really brings out the bee on the flower. And I do want to apologize. I haven't done this presentation in a long time, so I'm still a little rusty on it. So, but certainly giving it my best. Another one, we finally set up branches and put out 3 hummingbird feeders this summer. Didn't really know if we were going to get hummingbirds, but we got about 5 of them coming daily to the feeders, and we actually cut down branches and kind of used a piece of wood and nailed them to the, well, taped them to the back of the deck. So we had these branches for the birds to land on while they were trying to get to the feeders or waiting for the feeders and that sort of thing. So these hummingbirds, you know, 1 or 2 would come in at a time, and the other one would wait for the other one to finish or just sit there. And I just loved photographing these hummingbirds. I've not done it before. I know Jeff Johnson is just a master at bird photography and hummingbirds. And I found him like, oh, finally I can get hummingbirds. I've been, you know, just one thing I had not been able to get for a long time. But this one, the hummingbird, it's not the prettiest hummingbird there is. The colors are muted. The background is very distracting, especially with the kind of the white little out of focus area at the bottom. So it kind of distracts from the actual subject of the bird. So, and I like my black and white photography rather dark, and I just want the subjects to really pop. So the image that I created in black and white was this one. I kind of had the hummingbird and the branch just as obviously the hummingbird is the main subject, and I had made the background dark and black, literally black, just to have the subject jump out from the background. And I, again, will show you also how to do this in the demonstration one of the photographs. It may not be this exact photo, but it's a similar photo of another hummingbird. I'll show you how to create that. It's actually really quite simple, and there are 2 techniques you can do on that. So again, you can see that the final image compared to the original color one, I think it's much more striking and really brings out the subject in the image. So let's talk a little bit about different techniques and ideas to see in black and white. People, again, that have seen our presentation will be familiar with this sort of thing. So we're going to go ahead and, a lot of it is shooting. Most people, I hope, would shoot raw, which obviously is color, but you can set cameras, your camera up to shoot in black and white as a JPEG and a RAW. The JPEG will obviously be black and white, but the RAW image will be in color. Now, the advantage of that is that you could actually go ahead and set your camera up so that the camera records, because every time a camera takes a picture, you don't see the RAW file, you see the camera generates a JPEG, and that's what you see on the back of the screen or when you look through the viewfinder. You can actually set up your cameras to look through the viewfinder or the back of the screen, and the camera can see in black and white, the image in black and white, which is really nice because you can tell, you can see what the actual image looks like, and is this worth the image? Is this worth it to process it in black and white? Again, those people that shoot JPEG, you have the ability to set your cameras up. If your camera can do it, not all cameras, I think most cameras today, pretty much every camera today can do this feature, the digital cameras, the newer models. That if you only shoot JPEG, you shoot black and white, and you see that through the camera. So after you've taken the photograph, you can see what the image looks like in black and white. And I think that's one wonderful advantage over digital cameras. especially the mirrorless. I believe a lot of I've been shooting mirrorless for years now, so I'm assuming that all the DSLRs can do it today. I'm sure people will correct me and say you probably can't, or yes, you can. But I just know from a mirrorless point of view that I think it's a wonderful feature. And it's a wonderful feature to see the scene that you're shooting and also help you kind of learn what the scene looks like. And also you can see it in black and white, and that kind of helps you think about, oh, is this going to work or not going to work? Another great thing is your smartphone. Smartphone's a great way to photograph. Obviously, these new phones today are fantastic. And these are two of my favorite applications that I love. I shoot only really pretty much 100% with on my phone. It's called Blackie and Hipstamatic. Most people probably know Hipstamatic. And I know a friend of mine who came to visit a few months ago, Sydney Stone, from NVPS. I mean, he saw my presentation, and all he shoots now is Blackie on his phone, and he absolutely loves the app. So everything he takes is in black and white now. But I'm sorry? I thought I heard something. So again, the phone, your mobile phone the smartphone is a really great way of taking photographs. You know, they're great. They're probably not good for 4 by, you know, I guess AI gigapixel will help, but you know, mostly it's for, you know, the internet, Facebook, Instagram, that sort of thing. But using these two applications really are a lot of fun. And again, they also help you visualize what the scene in black and white, because what you see through the phone as it captures the image is in black and white. So highly recommended on the whole smartphone. Recommend getting these two applications. So let's talk about metering for black and white. There are, you know, all kinds of metering today on these cameras: center, average, matrix, partial, and spot. And to me, spot metering is, I think, the best way to photograph a subject in black and white. You know, spot metering allows the main subject to be correctly exposed and the background to be dark. Not all subjects work with spot metering, but for black and white, it really helps the subject stand out. There are certain situations, like, I guess if you're doing a lot, it seems to be the new trend today, actually, it's a lot of high-key photography. And that can be done very well with spot metering too. Like, if, you know, if there's a black dog or a black panther or an elephant, something, you can meet a spot meter on the elephant, and it literally will almost blow out the background. And turn that into a high-key black and white is a great way to create some really striking images, which is the opposite, which is kind of the opposite of what I do, because I like kind of the subject being bright and the dark, and the backgrounds being really dark. I've not really played with high-key much lately, or ever really, but I plan on playing with it in the future, perhaps next year when we go on some trips. Because, you know, it's just something new and something interesting to learn. And, you know, I highly recommend you kind of play with that idea. So spot metering is definitely the way to go. And I'm going to show you some examples of the spot metering that I've done and why it's so good with black and white photography. This was a lily at, oh my gosh, it was in Virginia. I can't remember because I'm now in Montana. It's been a year.
Kenilworth?
Eleanor Lawrence.
No, Eleanor Lawrence, thank you. Eleanor Lawrence pond. They're 66 and 28, I remember. It's a great little pond for lilies in August, that kind of time of year. So what I did, I metered on the lily, spot metered on the lily, and everything went so dark because there was a lot of clutter in the water. There was a lot of stuff in the water that was just very distracting from the image. So spot metering in that on the white of the lily really darkened everything up. And then I went back into, when I processed it in Photoshop, I brought back some of the shadows and the highlights in the lily and then in the reflection. This one people have seen before. This is Bad Hair Day. This was the Huntley Meadows. Again, spot metering on the egret, on the lightest part. No, actually, it wasn't the hair. It was just it was around the eye, around the area of the eye. But because the background was so far away and it was a bunch of trees really far off, about probably 30, 40 feet away, and it was a wide open aperture, that spot metering and then turning it into black and white and adding a lot of contrast to it actually made the background disappear. I didn't really do much to the background. It was so dark because that egret was so bright. It was so white in the sunshine. which I really liked the contrast. And I also liked it how it gave it kind of a, it enhanced the beak because of the way the angle of the sun was going on it. I think it really worked quite well. This was taken in the Palouse when Denise and I went there in June. That's probably been photographed, quite a few times. What I did here is I kind of wish I had a laser pointer if I was at home in the auditorium and presented to everyone. I have a laser pointer, but I meted on those, obviously on those two buildings right there. I pre-visualized this image when I saw it, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great kind of minimalism landscape photography, and I really kind of like that photography. I like I very much like minimalism and in my images, and I think minimalism works really well with black and white. So I had metered again with the spot metering on these two little buildings right here, and then went in and processed the images that I managed to get, because I believe it was, I think it was yellow, I can't remember. I guess it was green, because we saw a lot of canola, but this is a lot of green. It turned in really nice dark and gray. And because I metered on the two buildings, and the sky was probably about the same tone of lightness, and at that time of day, I think it's close to midday, it really enhanced the clouds. So what I like about it is that the contrast, the beautiful contrast between the grass area and the building having the same tones as the clouds there. So that's a great aspect of spot metering, because if I had done a full matrix metering of the image, I probably would have lost a lot of detail and the house and probably most of the sky, because it would have taken the reading off of the green grass. I probably lost quite a lot of detail in there. It would kind of been a little tough to process, I think, at the time. It would have been hard to process and kind of get the detail that I wanted to get from the final image. Now, another advantage not only with spot metering is I love bracketing. I bracket too much almost. Sometimes, lately now, I've been doing, instead of like 3 brackets, I've been doing 5, and there's a couple of times that I've done 9 brackets, and yeah, I bracket too much. I take, fills up cards too many times, too much time. It fills it up really, really quick. Anyway, bracketing allows you to pick up more dynamic range than just in a single exposure. This allows more creative license in post-processing, and that's what I was talking about, especially like that previous one you saw from the Palouse. That was a 5-shot bracket with the spot metering on those white houses, because I wanted to get as much dynamic range out of the image, especially in the grass area, so I could see the texture and the highlights in the grass and different tones of gray in that grass. So just an example of the bracketing is a -1, a 0, which is a normal exposure, and then +1 overexposure. I actually have changed it now that I actually do, instead of doing 5 and 9 or 7, whatever I was doing, I'm actually doing the 3 pictures now. But I'm actually doing, instead of -1, I'm doing -2 and +2 to get even more of a range. But I don't have to, so I don't have to take 5 pictures. I can take 2, but still kind of get what 5 images would do. So I do highly recommend bracketing. And then right now, as I said, I'm doing -2 and +2 on the bracketing. So these are the 3 images that were taken, handheld, and then I combined the 3 images in Lightroom on the HDR. I combined all 3 images, just because it may not seem it there, but there is a lot more dynamic range in there than if I had taken one single photograph. And then the final black and white image. And because I think I bracketed so well and with the metering, that I got a lot more tonal ranges, especially around the lights and the darks. The headlamps are not blown out. There's a lot of grays and blacks in there. So I think the bracketing really helped in this, because it was a bright day, and you've got to be careful, especially on bright days. Bracket a lot. If it's overcast or rainy and stuff, you probably don't have to do it as much. But I try to bracket in almost everything I shoot. So here are some of my other examples. This was again in the Tetons that we went. This was a 5-image bracket, just because the contrast from, this was actually sunset. the contrast between the really bright skies behind the mountains and the barn was just, could never have captured that in one single exposure. So I did bracket quite a bit on this, and then just having to go in and getting the, bringing back the detail in Photoshop, and I added a bit of a gradation, which I'll show you how to do in Photoshop later on in the post processing. The gradation, I think, adds a lot to the skies in black and white, and I think it adds a little bit of drama to it. And then in that gradation, that little puff of white cloud out there, I actually went back and lightened that little cloud a bit to kind of draw your attention to that. But again, another advantage of the bracketing is there's so much dynamic range. Just I managed to recover the highlights and the shadows came out nice in this image, which I would never have been able to capture in a single image. Another example, this was, Denise and I drove up to a dam near Glacier last fall. And this was a handheld, again, another 5 bracket, but it was a -1 on the 5 brackets. Sun was kind of coming through the clouds at the time. It was a dull day, but I knew that I had, because of the amount of bright light on the top of that mountain and how dark it was in the foreground, I knew I had to do some bracketing on that, because I just wouldn't have been, it would either been really blown out or really too dark, and I don't know if I'd have been able to get the detail back on that image. So again, another advantage of the black and white, of the bracketing in black and white, is to get these beautiful tonalities that you can create through that, getting the exposure just right on that. Just one more quick one. This is an abandoned town south of here, south of Kalispell, about 2 or 3 hours away. I forget the name of the town, but again, this was a tough shoot too. It was dark. The house is dark. The trees are dark brown. It was a blue sky day. How do you meter on this? I don't believe I actually spot meter in this one. I just did a matrix metering on this one. But again, I did bracket on this one quite a lot, just because there's so much contrast, and I needed to get so much detail out of this, and I really like how the detail in the houses and the trees were. But also I didn't want to lose the sky. I didn't want to have a blown out sky and have to work at it to try and get it back, because trying to get that sort of thing back in masking and that sort of thing in trees and leaves, I know Denise is amazing with Photoshop and she could probably do it, but my skills are just not that good. And so I try to do as much as I can in camera that'll help me work easier and a little bit faster in post-processing. So another one is tonal range in black and white. So black and white images should express the entire tonal range. In other words, deep blacks and bright whites should be present in your image. I want to show an image by Ansel Adams called Moonrise Fernandez 1941. This is one of his most famous images. And I think not only because of the composition, it's just beautiful, but the tonal range in this image, from really deep dark blacks until some really nice white areas below them in the cloud area of the moon. But you get all the detail on that, and it's just amazing to think it was filmed back in the day. But I guess I must have been incredibly influenced by him. I mean, I think he's an incredible photographer. But I try to do my dark backgrounds that you've seen in my samples that I showed you earlier. I try to get as much tonal range as I can in my images. So factors that influence tonal range include subject reflectives, as well as the lighting. The wider the range expands, the more contrast there is. And I do like contrasted pictures, not all the time, but I do like contrast, especially in black and white. Here's an example that we went to a rodeo when we first came out here last year. And I just did a close-up of the hens. But I love the range of the grays and the dark blacks up in the left-hand corner. And just the whole, it's almost like this is not as contrasty as it could be. I just kind of soft overall nice feel to the image. And this worked so much better in black and white. It just didn't look good in color. So that's another example of that. Another example, that day, we also went out to that dam and was photographing the mountains. I just happened to turn around and see this, and I just love the range of tones on this, from whites to grays to the dark trees and how the contrast, and then the upper left to the lower right angle of the mountain coming down kind of splits the image in half almost perfectly. And because of the range and the metering and that sort of thing, I just think this image really, it's one of my favorite images from that day that we went there. So another part is simplicity in negative space. So negative space is an area surrounding your subject that does not contain much detail. In black and white photography, it would be an area of white, black, or gray that creates a frame for your subject, giving it room to breathe within the composition. I'll show you a couple of examples of this. This is the one I took out in our backyard here a few months ago. I started to play with my macro photography, and I just saw this little ladybug crawling along this leaf, and I had the lens wide open at 2.8 and wait till she kind of crawled into focus and clicked it. But I just like the way the negative space and the leading line just kind of brings it out, because you know she's just going to continue walking down that leaf. And it's, again, you know, the idea of you know, thirds in the image. I don't necessarily do as much with the thirds as, you know, everyone say you have to do that. It's a personal thing. I'm actually doing a lot of my macro stuff. I'll do the insects or animals or whatever it is in the rule of thirds, because I think it adds drama, especially to the macro images. Another example is simplicity in negative space. You can do it in portraits. This is another one from the rodeo. I just love the way he's posed. He's kind of daydreaming or whatever he's thinking about while the rodeo is going on. And I gave him the rule of thirds here and just the negative space on the right-hand side. He's gazing off to the right, so I made sure that I composed the image on the left-hand side, so you just appreciate the way what is he looking at, what's he thinking about, and just gives that subject more drama. Because of the negative space adds to it. I could have cropped it to a square and it'd be more, I guess I don't know if it added to the image or not, but I just like the way the negative space works on this, especially his staring off into that air space. I think it adds drama to the image. And then one of my favorites is the hummingbird that I got. Talking about simplicity in negative space, he just fed on his little hummingbird feeder and was just kind of hovering there and licking his tongue coming in and out, and I managed to grab a few quick shots of him before he flew off at God knows how fast they fly off so quickly. But the hair, the use of negative space, excuse me, and the simplicity of the image, I think really impacts the way the hummingbird works in the frame. Again, I could have filled the frame with the bird, but I did not. I just wanted that whole, I knew that I wanted to kind of get him in 1/3 of the area just to add drama, because it feels like he's possibly flying from the left and right. I think he actually flew more straight up and then off completely. But it kind of gives a feeling of going from left to right and flying left to right. And that, I think, adds to the whole drama of the image. Guys, you're welcome to, I don't know if Sam will do it, but if you have questions, or we can wait till the end of the presentation. It's not much more on the presentation side. You can ask questions after that before I do the processing aspect of the show tonight. So another thing is lighting and shadows. So playing with light and shadow can create an attractive black and white photograph. Obviously, duh. An example of that is, again, with the Tetons. This was, I believe it was sunset again. Yes, this is sunset. But the way the light was coming onto the mountains, onto the peaks, and how dark it was in the foreground, I just loved the way these God rays were coming down onto the peaks, and it looked fine in color, but in black and white it can be really quite dramatic. I probably could have brought the contrast out a little more in the cloud and the sky, but I felt that it would look too artificial in a way. I wanted to kind of keep this to the way I actually saw it at the time, and I thought about how it would look in black and white. But again, you can see how the lighting and the shadows in this really add drama into a black and white image. Another one is another birdie from the backyard. What I liked about this one, it was afternoon light. The light was coming from the right onto him. He was there probably for about 20 seconds because they're just schizo. And I managed to get a few shots off. And I just love the way the light is hitting me and you get the catch light in the eye. Again, the whole lighting with the shadows on the branches. I was really happy with this image, and I had the lens wide open, handheld. I think it was at 600 millimeters, and it did blur out the back. I didn't do anything to the background. The background was like that, but I just really love the way the light and the shadows and brings out the detail in the feathers of the bird, and just adds something to it, especially in black and white. In color, the bird is not. It's not a colorful bird in real life, in color. So the black and white really enhanced it with the contrast and that sort of thing. Again, one from the rodeo. I'm just using some of these pictures I've taken in 2020. What I like about this image, this was indoors and it's a kid waiting to go up. They don't put them on horses. They put them on little cows or stuff, and they bounce around on the cow. It's the cutest thing in the world to watch these little kids hoping one day to grow up to be, big rodeo stars. But he was sitting there watching all these professional rodeo guys going, and he was just fascinating. What I liked about this image was the way the lighting was coming to him from the right. But what I loved was the way lost for words on this, the way the grating on his helmet, the shadows it created on his face. I thought that was absolutely so interesting. To me, that's what really makes the image. I mean, he's a cute kid, but I just like the way the lighting works on this and the shadows that it created on this boy's face. I just thought it was really nice. Kind of, he's in his own world and waiting to go out and be a rodeo star. I just think that worked really nice. So another aspect of black and white is lines, textures, and shapes. They're very important, and it's also obviously very dramatic because it can give you kind of a graphic feel, and and black and white lends itself that towards a kind of a graphic abstract images that you can create from this. And people have probably seen this image before. This is my air show image, and this is one of my favorite air show images I've ever taken of the blue. It wasn't the Blue Angels. What's the other one? I can't remember the other one.
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds, thank you. At Andrews Air Force Base, open house. And I just love the way it's such a graphic image. The lines have been separated in different positions at the time. And again, I spot muted on the planes before they had taken off. So I'd actually set the camera into them. I shoot actually a lot more manual now. But before I used to shoot a lot in aperture priority. But this one, for these planes, I knew I didn't want to overexpose, blow out the whites of the planes. I shot hundreds of pictures of them. But I manually spot muted onto the planes as they were heading down the runway. So, and that obviously I kept the whole time, which darkened the blue sky. There was not a cloud in the sky that day, which is I'm kind of happy for. But it gave this kind of graphic effect that really works well, I believe, in black and white. The lines, the separation, it's more of a graphic feel. Another advantage of black and white is you can get some beautiful textures. This is just a flower off the deck. I was sitting there and waiting for the birds, and I'm like, ooh, it just rained. And I'm like, ooh, I like that. It might look quite good. I think it's actually a pink flower. I have no idea what the name of the flower is, and I don't have a green thumb. But I just love the texture and the shapes of the flower after it had rained. So I zoomed in, took a picture of it. Again, spot muted on the pink flower, which darkened up a green background behind it off the deck. And I processed it in black and white and added a little clarity and text in Lightroom and Photoshop just to bring out a little more detail. But this is what I think is wonderful about black and white photography: the detail that you can get in this image through black and white photography is I think it's just amazing, and that's what really gets me excited about black and white photography. You may have seen it nicely. It looked good in the color image, but like I said in the beginning with the first slide, you get distracted by the color. And to me, this image is all about the drops and the texture in the leaves and that sort of thing, and no distraction from the background, because the background was really, really kind of green. And it was too much, I believe, to really work that well in color. And just a simple one-off for one of our lounge chairs on the deck after it rained. Another example of the shapes, textures, and that sort of thing that you can get in black and white. It's a black chair, so color would serve no purpose for it whatsoever. But I just kind of like the shapes of the water. I just went down close to the chair with a macro lens and took some pictures, and I thought it looked really nice in black and white. It's kind of abstract detail, and I love photographing water whenever I can. I just think it's a fun subject to shoot. Now, another aspect of black and white photography is infrared photography, and I must say that I am not an infrared photographer. I don't even own an infrared camera. But my better half, Denise, does own a better infrared camera. And it's basically another take on black and white. And she has a camera, the camera was created and I guess sent by Light Pixel, and the sensor was modified for black and white infrared photography. And these are next two images, I believe, or two or three are her images. This was, I believe, taken in, I'm not sure where this was taken, but one of the advantages of this in infrared, Palouse, that's what I thought, yeah. One of the things that I enjoy about and I find fascinating about infrared photography, that it turns trees white, which is just, and obviously you can see the grass around the house there too, it's white. I just think it's such an interesting effect that infrared photography can. You need bright days, you don't want to do infrared photography on overcast days, that sort of thing. And there's only certain subjects that really pop out in infrared photography. And actually, since Denise is the infrared photographer, and she's welcome to just chime in if you don't mind for a couple of minutes, just if there's anything I missed, because as I said, this is not my forte. But so
I'm sitting here chewing nuts and drinking wine, but
oh wait, you're drinking wine without me?
My bad. So the neat thing, just to like fill in a blank here, the neat thing about infrared, so you do need to get a camera converted. So that's like one thing. It's not just something that happens automatically in your camera. There are some filters. If you use filters, you'll have to have a tripod. So there's kind of a downside to filters because the filters are nearly black to like block out the all the bands of light except for infrared. So the easiest way to do it is get a camera converted. So if you thought you're going to be into it or it was your kind of gig, if you have an old body lying around, that's what you would do. But the thing that's really amazing about it is that it allows you to take yourself out all day long. So if you're on travel or you're someplace and there's kind of this idea that, oh, I shoot in the morning and I shoot in the afternoon, but you get to high noon and the light's harsh. Well, that's the kind of light that's epic for infrared photography. And one of the things you see in both of these photos, actually go back one, Geoff, when you have bright green, so like you can see the house, like the lawn and the trees right behind the house are bright green. The pine trees still are rendering in dark green, but if you have bright green leaves, you're going to go to white, which is really kind of an interesting effect. So this almost feels like it could be snowed on. There's just an ethereal look to it. You have the next photo. This photo was taken from an airplane, actually, there you go, over the Palouse. And all of that white that you see is actually wheat. And so the green, I'm just drawing the photo, like literally drawing a blank. This is a senility moment. Anyway, the green in the bright green that you see is all turning to white, whereas that black part is actually just dirt. So that's not anything. It's just dirt, but it renders in a different way. And then depending on how much chlorophyll, that was the word I was looking for, is actually in the leaves will kind of determine how far they push to white. So anyway, that's the neat thing about infrared. So it's just another form of black and white. Yes, there's color infrared. There's some other things. That's not the kind of infrared I like. I do like black and white infrared, but it's just another way to sort of see and capture black and white imagery. So if you're totally into it, Life Pixel is who we've had our cameras converted by. They do a good job, and their website has a ton of information so you can kind of pick the right fit for yourself. But that's about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So anyway, we're getting to the end of the presentation. So basically the software I use is Lightroom CC and Photoshop CC. Like I said before, I do most of my processing in Photoshop. I do my cataloging in Lightroom. But with the plugins, I actually will occasionally do the plugins in convert them in Lightroom, and then do the rest of the processing in Photoshop. So it kind of varies and depends on the situation and on the type of image that I use processing. She says I have questions, but I'm not seeing them on my screen. Thank you. I can't hear her. I apologize.
Oh, I realized.
So anyway, the software.
Do you want me to read some of them? Let's see.
Yeah, so my point was,
hang on. If you want to hang on for just a second.
Yep.
Yeah, if you just want to hang on for a second. This is literally the last slide, and then I'm taking the questions. But anyway, this is the software I use. Obviously Photoshop and Lightroom, but within Photoshop, I use the Nick Collection by DxO, and I highly recommend it. They just came out with an update now, and I use Color Effects Pro a lot in I use Pro Contrast and Darken Lighten Center, and I also use Viveza, which is also part of the Nick Collection DxO, and I highly recommend to get that. So anyway, so I have to figure out how to escape this. Hold on a second. Like I said, this is my first time doing it. Oh, there we go. And now I will go to my Lightroom, but I will take questions. I apologize. Like I said, I'm new to this whole Zoom thing, so I did not see any questions come up, but please feel free to ask your questions now.
Okay, Geoff, Charles here. I have a question. When you shoot bracketed, do you merge them in color or transfer each one to black and white and then merge them?
Nice question. No, I will take the color pictures. I will merge the color pictures in Lightroom in HDR so that the final HDR image is in color, and then I'll do my conversion to black and white after. I won't do each individual one and combine it.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I just do the first thing I do. I'll bring it into Lightroom. I'll choose the ones that I like, and I'll immediately combine them into an HDR, and then from there I'll go ahead and start the black and white processing.
So you're effectively merging them in RAW.
Yes,
yeah,
I'm merging. I'm merging the raw file. Excuse me for 1 second.
Because they have the most detail.
Yes, it provides the most detail. Absolutely, and I shoot RAW. I don't shoot JPEG. I do shoot RAW, so yes, I'm creating an HDR from 3 to 5 RAW files, and to one final. And it doesn't keep it as a RAW file. I believe it changes it to a DNG file. And then once I processed everything in Photoshop, it could bring it back, and it saves it back to Lightroom. I believe it saves it as a TIFF. So, but I do the original conversion into HDR from the RAW files. Now that doesn't say that you can also do it from the JPEG files. I just happen to only shoot RAW.
Yeah, but then you're limited to 8 bits color.
In what? In the RAW file?
Yeah, no, in the JPEG.
Right. Yeah, but there are people that don't want to shoot RAW. So I'm just saying they can do the. You are limited in JPEG. I completely understand that. But if someone only shoots JPEGs and they don't want to shoot RAW, the workflow and the way to do things is pretty much the same. Yes, you may not have the most amazing amount of dynamic range as a RAW file does, but you're still going to come out with a beautiful image.
You're good. Yeah.
Anyone else?
All right, I'm gonna have
Yeah,
Nope.
I got another question.
Tom Anglo.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
This is Tom Anglo. This is Tom Anglo. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's the of shooting in JPEG? What's the reason for wanting to do that?
You actually broke up. I apologize. Repeat it again.
All right, that's on my end.
Yeah, you're breaking
Why
up.
would you
Tom.
want to shoot in JPEG?
Why would you want to shoot in JPEG?
JPEG.
Hey, Tom, have you got to
Why would you want to
turn the phone so it can't hear, because we're getting a feedback.
Yeah, people shoot in JPEG because it's. I used to way back in the beginning of my digital photography. I used to shoot JPEG. It's faster. The images process faster. You can. What you see is what you get with the JPEG. Like what you see on the back of the camera screen is what you'd actually get on the JPEG. You know, it looks. Oh my gosh, the back of that picture looks so pretty and saturated and clean. On the back of the camera, but when you actually bring the raw file in, it's actually fairly dull compared to what you saw on the back of the camera, because the back of the camera is processed in the JPEG. So a lot of people don't want to go through the whole workflow of raw files, and just prefer to, you know, a lot of people shoot JPEG. They won't bracket, or they just take one picture with the JPEG and they like it and have to do minimal processing with it, and they call it a day on that image, which is fine. I mean, there are beautiful images out there, you know, that are seen on Facebook and everything. They're all you know, some people shoot with JPEG. We have a friend here right now that she shoots JPEG, and she goes to art shows and she sells like crazy, and she shoots on her phone and in her camera. She has a 5D Mark IV Canon, and she shoots JPEG, and her pictures are absolutely stunning. So it's a personal choice. Some people don't want to go through that amount of work on raw files. You know, it's an individual choice. It's what a person wants to do with their photography. So I just haven't. I know most of us, the people I know at LPC, they shoot raw, and I just enjoy shooting raw. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, that JPEG looked really good, but you know, it is what it is. It's a personal choice. So anyway. Now I got to share my screen again, don't I? Can people see my screen? My Lightroom?
Lightroom, yeah.
You can see my Lightroom setup.
Yes.
Okay, good. That was a show again. So I'm going to process these 3 pictures for you. Obviously, I'm limited on time, so I can't go to the full way of that I would normally process them. But for example, this one was the one that you saw originally that I showed you in the sample. Really have to learn how to do a straight horizon. But anyway, this is a picture in Lightroom. Let me just move this out of the way. I'm going to my develop module here. And there are several ways you can do this. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, these are a lot of presets that I own. And again, here are the 2 new presets I have. So this is my normal black and white preset that I have. And I'm just going to show you this. I'll show you how to do the presets also in Adobe Camera Raw in Photoshop. But this is the original preset that I think most of you have, and some of the new people do not probably have it. And hopefully I'll be able to get it out to you. And then this is the new preset I have, which kind of gives it kind of a halo vignetting kind of effect. It doesn't work on certain scenes, and I don't think it works on this one. It works really actually well with the birds, especially the hummingbirds. And I'll show you that stuff, and I can show you that just really quickly. So there's the hummingbird I'm going to process. Again, it's not the prettiest bird. It's, again, a raw file, so it was kind of an overcast day, which is a miracle in Montana, apparently. But here is my original black and white preset that I have. And there's the new one I created. You can see how much darker the background automatically gets and how much detail you can get in the bird now compared to the old one. So if you guys are interested, I'll be happy to send you my new preset that I have. But let's go back to this one. So I just kind of go through the workflow quickly on this image. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I'll certainly do my best to show you what I do. And since I don't know if most of you use Lightroom or not, I assume most of you use Photoshop and probably not as much Lightroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this immediately. I'm going to right click and export this straight into Photoshop. And this, by the way, is a DNG file. So this is 3 images combined. So I have done the HDR on this image. So I could get some of the tonal range in that image. So what I'm going to do here is wait for it to come up, and we're just going to sit here. There we go. So if anyone interested, this is the new panel for the Nick collection by DxO. And it looks completely different from the old one, and I highly recommend it. I absolutely love it. and I use it pretty much in every photo. And I know people don't have it, so I'll try and process this image without using Nick. But there might be some way I have to put Nick in there a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the filter. Oops, hang on. Why is it? What's going on? RGB. Of course, it never goes right when you. Oh my goodness! Hang on. Let me try this again. I apologize, folks. Let me try this one then. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to go to camera roll. No, see, this one goes to camera. Okay, so we'll work with this one for a little bit for now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to camera roll. Now this is if you want to use my plugins also in Photoshop. So the new camera roll is significantly different than the old one that Adobe updated about a month ago. It's taken some getting used to. But in this panel here, this is the basic panel where you can adjust exposure and contrast and that sort of thing. But right here, in this little icon here, it'll show the presets that I have in my Lightroom. I can also use an Adobe Camera Raw. So I can come down here and do my black and white preset like that, or I can do my new black and white preset. That's one, I think, one great advantage of Adobe Camera Raw. You don't have to do it in Lightroom. You can do it in Adobe Photoshop. But I'm just going to go back and use my basic one that I've used before. Also, you can also just go ahead, and let me just cancel this a second. I know basically what you can also do is you can just go, what I've done before back in the day, is I go to mode. I mean, it sounds simple. I go to mode, I go to grayscale. What? I go to grayscale, and then I turn it back to RGB because you need to work in RGB, and it stays gray. So from there, I could work on this image. But what I like, okay, so I just keep it as grayscale for now. So the first thing I do is I'm actually going to take this image now and go back in. Why is it not going to camera raw again?
Because you're not in the right menu. Go to filter.
Oh, right. No, I'm in the filter.
No, you're not.
Okay, so go to. No, see, it's not. It's this is the weirdest thing. All right, now I got it. I understand now. I got it. I got it now. I understand. My bad, folks. I apologize. So I'm going to do the grayscale. Go back to the RGB. You actually have to hold the bloody filter down. There we go. So now I'm going to camera roll again. So in camera roll here, I can start off by adjusting the exposure. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. I'm going to add some contrast to the image. I'm going to bring it out. Don't want to blow those highlights too much, but I want to bring it down a little bit, like this. Now, you can. What I love about this is you can just drag the sliders, add a little bit of clarity to the image. Texture, it brings a little more texture out into the grass area in the front. I'll hit OK for that. Wait till it comes in. What I like to do, I have to move this pen out of the way, I apologize. That's not moving. What I like to do is I'll always duplicate this layer because camera raw will work right on that layer. So I like to keep, I'm not afraid of layers. I like all my images I keep as layers. So we've got the exact same one, but I'm going to plan on working this one because if there's anything that goes wrong, if I can't undo or I don't want to revert the image, I can just get rid of the layer and go back to the original one. So one of the things I can do here is, and I love about Nik Color Effects, and again, I'll show you without the Nik Color Effects Pro, I like to go to Pro Contrast. So I'm actually adding contrast in Camera Raw, but now I'm going to add some more contrast and see how it changes in Nik Color Effects Pro. So now the images come up, and again, there's now the dynamic contrast and the correct contrast. So the first one I'll do, you can see how much it changes. Can everyone see that on the image? So I'm going to add a little contrast there, and then I'm going to go into a little more contrast. It gets the greens that are really quite dark. on this image here. I can go ahead and click OK on that. One of the things I'll do, but I'll just do it really quick, is little things. Obviously, I'll go and highlight this little sucker here. I can blow it up. We got these two little posts here, which would drive me nuts. So I'll take the lasso tool and I'll hold down the shift key so I can get more than one. I'm just doing it very quickly, I apologize. Then I just go into fill. Now I'll go to content. You have all these different foreground, background color, black and white. I'll go to content aware. I'll just go ahead and click OK, and they've completely disappeared. Now, you can also go in and probably do all this area here, which is probably take some time, but what I might actually do, I would actually crop the image. And actually what I don't do is I don't crop the images in Photoshop. When I save the images and it comes back into Lightroom, I will crop the image in Lightroom to export to, you know, Instagram and that sort of thing. That way I can undo the crop in Lightroom and have the original images I wanted. I don't like to crop my images in Photoshop because then the actual final TIFF that I've done all the processing in has been cropped. And if I don't like the crop, you know, 2 weeks later or something, and I want to do something else with the image, I can at least go back to the original one that I had in Lightroom. So on this image, we can now go into, like, you can go into dodge and burn. You know, the little, if you go into the panel over here, you know, if you click on the little, it's like a little fist. That's the burn tool, and then the little one up here is the dodge tool. I can go in here, and I can bring my opacity exposure of the tool down. I'll probably bring it down to about maybe 18. You kind of guesstimate and start where you want. You can use the bracket keys to increase and decrease the size of your brush. Also, the brush up here, you have the soft and hard edge. I mostly use the soft edge of mine. I have to click out, but if I'm in the burn tool, because I'm going to show you dramatic contrast, I'm just going to bring it up again. But like in this area, I might want to go in. Where is it? You got the burn tool up there. It might not be enough. Oh yeah, it's working. It's just very subtle in here. So I could take the burn tool, which I do on the clouds. I could just kind of go in and quickly just go across, kind of bring some drama out in the clouds right here. You may want to take that a little darker there. And obviously you can decrease and increase. The flow is a bit harsh on this one. Let me bring it down a little more. Let me undo that one, but possibly going to kind of bring it in this area here. Just add some drama into the sky. And if this is a little gray up here, I'll just go to my dodge tool, which is obviously opposite. It'll lighten the sky. This is at 9%. I was using it for another image this morning. Let's just bring it up. I'm just trying to show you just some samples of the dramatic effect that you can get. So maybe go up here and darken that area up a little bit in here. Maybe just do it. Well, that's a bit big, but kind of do a touch in here. I might go in here and blow this up and just go in here. Oops. I forget the right tool. Obviously way too big. Bring this down. It's a 67, way too large, way too high. So maybe bring it down to about 18, and I'll just go in, and it's not showing up well on the screen. Kind of go in here, maybe lighten this area a little bit here. Maybe lighten up the roof just a touch, just so it pops out more from the background. This area here, maybe just do it in an area like that. And now that I'm doing lightening, I may increase the brush and bring it way down to maybe, say, 15% or 14%. And I'm just going to try, and a lot of the experiments in play too, like there's a lot of, you know, nice areas here. I can just slightly kind of see some bars. So I might just brush across to kind of bring some highlights out. And you can see there, you know, there's a kind of an area right here. I might bring a little highlight out in this area it's very subtle, but kind of just bring a little, let me increase it a little bit for you guys. See. But might, you know, just kind of bring some highlights out in that area right there, maybe a little bit here, definitely in the front. And another thing I can do here, this is what I also like. So I've got this done here, and I kind of like the way it looks, and don't worry about the way I'll crop it later on. But what you can also do here is I can go back into Camera Raw, And by the way, in camera raw, you have the option to click this off. But this is basically when you go in the image in the camera raw, you can this red indicator show that there's glowing highlights in the image now because I've been manipulated. So I can just go to the highlight tool right here and just kind of bring it down until the red disappears and everything is fine again. Obviously, if I go like that, it's going to go crazy. But I'll take it and bring it down a little bit right there. Now, what I want to do is, apologies, mouse went that way. Another thing I can do is this tool right here is a gradation tool, and I'll show you that later on with the gradation to get the dark skies. But on this one, it's kind of fun, is that you can create, if you hold down the shift key and drag up, you get a gradation bar, and you can turn it in angles, this kind of thing. But kind of maybe bring it to, I don't know, maybe hair. And this is the fun thing, you can, instead of darkening, you can lighten, kind of get more contrast in the grass at the front. And of course, you can adjust as much, adjust it as much as you want. Might be a bit too much highlight there. To kind of give it a little bit of drama on that. Click OK on that, and you can see the difference there that to the image. So it kind of adds a little bit of interest to the foreground, adds a bit of dimension to the whole image. So that's basically, I mean, again, I'll show you later on in another image that you can go ahead and do it to the skies too. But that's basically what I do to my images. Very simple processing on this. But again, creating the HDR, turning it into black and white. Another thing that I love, for those people that, again, I highly recommend DxO, is the Viveza part of the package that you can get. It'll open up again. And I can take this control point, view control point, but I can go in here, I can click here. Now, this is if you want some drama into the sky. And I wish I'd come up with a way that you could customize the way the area that you want to get done. But right now, it's only on circles, which is a bit of a pain. But I'll bring the circle down probably just a little bit in this area. And then over here, you'll see brightness, contrast, saturation, structure, and then a bunch of different shadow adjustments and a bunch of colors. You know, warm red, green, blue, and then the hue part. I like to just use, because looking over here, I have to look away from the actual image. And if I just use what's on here, which is the same things repeated here, I can just go in here and I can hit maybe the contrast, bring the contrast up a bit. You can see it gets a little more contrast. You're going to lose some whites up here, but I can bring that back. Excuse me, apologies. I may want to bring up a little bit of structure to the clouds. And once I've done that, and if I click off of here and up here is a preview, if I click off of that, you can see they're adding more contrast into the cloud area up there. And I kind of like that. So what I'll do is I'll just click on it again. And what I do is, Control or Command C to copy it. And then I can go Command V, and then it gives you this little kind of, I hope you guys can see it, kind of little crosshairs. And I can put it anywhere I want again. So maybe I'll move it over into this area. You can see how it adds contrast. I'll do Command V again. Maybe move it over into this area here. Add more contrast to those clouds. One more V and maybe possibly move to this area. Adds a lot more contrast. And if you just click off of the sides and you can see the preview and how much more drama it's added to that sky area. Now, sometimes it can affect the land area just because of the circle. But to me, it's darker. I kind of like it. If you don't like it, you can, once the layer is complete, hang on, I got to move this out of the way. There, move it to the other screen. Hold on. Hold on over there. I just go ahead and click OK. So now that it's gonna, there you go, the images. But now you can see it, because it's a layer, I have the old one underneath. And if I'm not happy with this, may have got a bit too dark here, then all I can do, unfortunately, this thing is blocking. Oh, there we go, blocking my Photoshop icons. There we go. I can create, on this layer, I could create a mask if I wanted to. I could create a mask which creates a little white box up here. And I'll go ahead, and because it's white here, I want the blocks over here black. And then I'll go in and I'll use my paintbrush tool. And I'll go ahead and, again, hold down the parens keys. And I can make it any size you want. And I'm going to put opacity at 100%. And I can go in here and I can just take out the area that was affected in here. You won't see it very well, but it was actually affected. So that now you see the sky is darker. I may have to take it out a little more of this area here. It's kind of going over. And you can, there is a, I'm not sure what the key is, but I can't, the name of the key, but you can do a mask. You can see like the masking that it creates. Basically what I did, so that, if it's affected just a little bit down here. Hang on. It's affected a little bit down here. Stop. Oh, so it's affected a little bit down here. So I just adjust a little bit down here, so it changed. So now, if you look, the ground, the grass area all the way to the top has not been affected by the by me adding contrast and contrast and the way it brightens up the cloud area. But I can tell you right now, I can see that these clouds here have been affected. They're blown out. You can automatically tell that. So the other option, if I had saved this now, I could bring it back into Lightroom and I could reduce the highlights. Or you just go to Adobe Camera Raw. Oop, that is not pretty. So basically what I have to do, I believe, again, I'm not the guru that Denise is on this one thing. So there, it shows, I knew that area was blown out, so it's obviously in red again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the highlights back down again. Just click OK. It's done. And actually what I'm going to do is hit the Command S button. And now it's going to save this image. And now the image has been saved, and it's still working. In big files. I think it's like over a gig now. Takes a second, I apologize. Okay, so it's done. So now it's back in Lightroom. So this is where I would go in and crop my image. I like to crop it to the aspect ratio that the sensor is. I mean, you can go in and do, you can go in and change anything you want. But I like to hold down the Shift key and to the ratio that it is there, and I'll just adjust and crop it to the way I like it, like that. And that's the final image. And if there were highlights blown and that sort of thing, you want to go back in. Again, it's the same thing with the Adobe Camera Raw. You can just reduce the highlights until the light's gone. And I can come in here, I don't have to open those in Photoshop. I could add more contrast if I wanted to. See, the contrast is going to damage the highlights, but I could come in and even do more clarity if I wanted, make it even more dramatic. And that's basically how I processed this one image that I took in the police with an image. Another example, this is the hummingbird I was talking about. Oop, that's one of the ones you don't want. Reset that. So on this one, there are two ways to do this, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun in this way. I'm going to go ahead and do my preset too. So I'm going to do it in Lightroom this time, as opposed to, again, you can do the camera roll in Photoshop, but I'm just going to do it here in Lightroom.
Hey, Geff.
So I've got the image now. It's looking good. Sometimes I can get a little crisp on the birds because the clarity is so higher. So I'm actually double click and bring the clarity down to 0.
Hey, Geff.
Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and
I'll get him here.
edit it in
Thank you.
Photoshop. So I'll just wait for a second for it to open.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to get your attention and you're not listening.
Where is she trying to get my attention?
Oh, because we can, the volume got really strange, so you're a little muffled. So I don't know if it's,
I don't hear her. I apologize.
we can't hear you well.
Where did you get? Hang on a second, Jeff.
Hey, Denise, maybe his earbuds are going, his batteries might be low.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
What's happening?
Did you get like beeping in your earbuds?
Yeah.
Yeah, it means they're dead. Okay, hang on, guys.
Luckily, Denise and I have done this so many times, we know the tech.
All right, you're just gonna have to talk.
Okay, I know how to take out the earbud.
That's much better.
Much better.
Oh, okay. So can you hear me now?
Yep.
Good. I apologize for that. I hope it wasn't going on too long.
No, it was only a minute.
Okay. I apologize. What? Huh. Okay. So anyway, we brought this bird in, this beautiful hummingbird, into Photoshop. And I kind of like the image. I like the way it looks. kind of like these highlights here, but I think I want to show you the way I would process it to have like a rated black background and have it the hummingbird pop. So again, what I do is I will go ahead. It's a background image right now. I can actually just click on it and it'll turn into a layer. And I always like to duplicate my layers. I'm a layers kind of guy. I'll save my images as layers. I don't flatten my images. You know, storage is cheap. You can, you know, buy terabyte drives for like $40 or whatever. So I like to keep all my images layered, just in case you need to go back one day and I want to adjust something. You don't have to recreate the wheel from the beginning. So I'll go up here into Adobe Camera Raw again, and I may adjust the contrast. And I could do this in Lightroom too, but I'm just showing you the guys that most of the people use Photoshop. I'll go into, adjust the contrast. I may go in and add a little bit of clarity to the bird. Now I'm only looking at the bird. I'm not worried about the background, the bird and the branch. Background's going to change, but who cares about the background right now? So I'm going to go in and adjust the bird, maybe put the little texture there into him, kind of like that. So I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to come up as another texture. So there are now two ways you could work this. One is the way that would probably drive me crazy, but you can use the burn, again, using the hand tool, using the burn tool, increasing, I'm getting sunlight on my screen, increasing the size of the brush, bringing up the exposure up to 100% up in here, and then kind of just going in and going over and darkening the background and trying to get it all. Oh, look, dust spot. Oh, God. I didn't need to have that there. I can go in and darken that kind of area like this. But a quick, more fun way, which is kind of cool, is, let me just get back to where it was, is using this marquee tool up here, square marquee tool here on the upper left. Click on that. Then go to here. It says select and mask. So I click on the select and mask. Oh, hang on a second. Give me a second on this thing. Click on the marquee tool, select the mask. It's weird, it's not showing me that, but I can go in here and I can select, I'll go around. Oh, it's not showing me the mask. Hang on a second, guys. Never, oh, I'm an idiot. I had the bottom layer selected. I think that was a problem. Go ahead. Yep, no, same thing.
There you go.
No, that's not it. Why is it not? Yeah, I practiced all this bloody thing this afternoon. I thought it would work. Let me see if I can get it to do. You're going to select the bird. Normally you can see what you're selecting. You can select the bird, reduce the brush size, kind of select, hopefully Photoshop is doing it because it doesn't show it. Select the branch. See if this works. I'm not sure it's going to work. Oh, you know what? I think I just figured it out. Hang on a second. I think I just figured it out. There we go. That's what I wanted. I had the bottom layer show. It's showing through both layers. So what you can do with this is now I'm going to go in, increase the size of the brush a little bit. I'm going to go in and Photoshop's going to nicely select the hummingbird. Now there's going to be some parts that are going to be a problem on this because it's you know, it's a dark image. And there's, you know, not much contrast between the branch and the background. So see what it did? It just kind of caught everything there. But what you can do is I'll just hold down the Alt button, which is, what's the word version for the PC?
Alter option.
Alter option. And I can go in and negatively select this. Sometimes, again, it's not working perfectly. But I can go in here and do this. And I can basically kind of just leave it like this because once I click OK, on this, it's created a mask on this layer here. So what I can do is I can increase the magnification of this, and I can go again using the whole mask thing, using the brush. Oops, brush is way too big. Using the brush, and I can go in, and I can. It's still too big. I can go in and just kind of go around roughly. And I'm just doing this roughly, getting rid of all the black areas here. around the branch. Anyway, I'm just going to leave that because I'm actually going to put a background in, black background in, so you won't be able to see this. But areas of the branch that is missing, right here you've got the black and the white. If you just reverse this to the white box, and again, just use your tool, you'll actually bring back that area that you lost. So you can go back and bring the branch back in this area here. Make the tool larger. And again, I'm just doing this very quickly, guys, just to show you an example of this. Here again, the branch has been taken away, so I can go back in and get the detail in the branch back. And I can reverse it again. I can get some of the black off the branch there, right there, and oops, this area right here. Again, just doing it quickly. And just check the bird quick. Ah, see, his beak's missing with some of the birds. So I'm going to reverse it again. And bring a little detail back in the feathers here. And of course, the beak is missing, so I'm just going to kind of bring the beak back. There's the beak coming back in. And I know this looks tedious, but it actually works really quite well, I believe. And I think, and then I just go back in and maybe get some of the gray off around there. Now that I have this layer, and don't worry about it, I can crop this like this. I have basically the bird done. I can go ahead and add another layer. And, oops, I haven't done that part yet. Let me add another layer. And this layer, all I'm going to do is go and edit, fill. And instead of foreground color, I'm just going to do black. Hit OK, black. And there's the bird separated from the image. Now, some people may not like a completely black background, so you can actually turn the bottom layer on. And this black layer, I can go up here where it says opacity up here. I can click and hold, and it's 100% now. If I go all the way down, you see I get the background back in. So I can actually adjust it to where maybe I just want a little bit of that background coming in instead of doing all the dodging and burning that I was doing earlier. I may bring that back in. And, excuse me, dry mouth. You can see, I mean, I'm just going to show you as an example. It's got a little bit of a halo from the original image. So if I go back to that masking panel and I go back to the brush and I make it really small, I can go in and I can just kind of brush that white away. And obviously I'm doing it very quickly and I'd be more precise if I had more time to do this. But you can kind of take the white out around it and do whatever you want around the branches and that sort of thing. So now that we have the bird on a darker background without the distractions of you know, the muted colors and that sort of thing. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and hit Command F, saving it again, and it'll come back in the Lightroom. And again, you can crop it. Obviously, you can crop it in export. You don't have to save it back to Lightroom if necessary. You can go ahead and now have the bird come up. And this one, which is nice about Lightroom, there's the original one that I converted to black and white, and then that's the new one that I have. Let me move this over here. So you can see original. I think I can do it this way too. No, maybe, oh. No. Anyway, so this is the original, and then the black and white. And then the original, I can do, I can actually reset it so it comes back to the original color. And color's okay, but I think it's just so much more dramatic in black and white. And from there, I can go in, again, you can do this in Photoshop, you can go in and crop it to thirds or whatever you'd like to do. Put it in the center, it's entirely up to you. I'm left-handed, so I kind of like my space on the right-hand side. So I click it, and that would be close to the final image on my on this hummingbird. And if I wanted, I could go in, maybe adjust the highlights a little bit in Lightroom. And again, you can do this in Photoshop. You can just maybe go in and change just a few things. You can also go in and change the way the blacks work by using the saturation tool here, but I never really do that because I'm mostly, quite happy with how you can see there's a little bit of red up here. It's showing the highlights. We burnt out a little bit, so bring it down just to here. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how I process my birds, and you can see it doesn't really take that long to process these black and whites. And that's why I like having the preset already, because the preset does a lot of the work for you. Back in the day when you just turn it to grayscale and you have to do a lot of dodging and burning, that sort of thing. So again, I'm happy to send you guys, everyone, the presets that will work in Photoshop and Lightroom. From that, let me just show you quickly on this landscape one. And the reason I get, by the way, in Lightroom, I get this white bar is because I've done the HDR on this. As you can see right here in the name of it, it says HDR DNG. So the raw files have become a DNG file because I've combined 3 images into one image. Now, a cool thing to do is I can actually go in and turn it to kind of it's an HDR. I can make it even more HDR by going in to the exposure area, and this is for Lightroom users. You can also, it's also in the camera raw. It's the exact same thing in camera raw. You hold down, well, you're not in this not right now. You take the highlights all the way to the bottom, to the left, and you drag your shadows all the way to the right, and then you hold down the Alt button and click on the white and drag the white to the right until you see these spots starting to come up. The highlight area, I just get them to where they're barely showing, you can barely see any, so I haven't moved that much. And then I go to the black, so I hold down and it becomes a white screen, and I drag it to the left and I start seeing more of the black area come in, and look at how much more contrast and HDR the image has gotten by just dragging that part. So I can start this way and bring it into Photoshop and create the black and whites there, or again, you can use the preset that I have. This one, again, number 2, is not good for landscapes. I don't recommend it. For the birds, it's fantastic. But for example, I may just go ahead and just use my preset one, the original one I had. I'm going to again export into Photoshop. The main thing I want to do on this one is I want to show you how to get those dramatic dark skies. So just give it a second until it comes in. Hope no one's fallen asleep yet or bored. But just give it a second. Oh, the color wheel. Oh, the love of the Mac. Come on, Apple, come out with a new ARM processor. It'd be much more fun. Here we go. There she comes. Okay. So on this one, again, I can go in to Adobe Camera Raw, or I can use the Pro Contrast in the Color Effects 4. Here, I'll increase the contrast a bit. I might add a bit of clarity to the image just to make it pop a little bit. I hit OK on that. I will straighten the images. I can go ahead and straighten it now, but I like to straighten and crop it when I've finished processing the image in Lightroom. So from here, I can go in and I want to add maybe a little more contrast to the mountains here. So there's 2 ways to do it. I like to do it again with my whole Viveza thing. Let me show you that again. When it opens in Viveza, and again, this is in the DxO software, I get my control point. Let me go ahead and make this a little bigger for you guys. So I can take my control point and I'll click it on like a gray area here. And again, I can make sure I'm not off of the, like, back on the arrow. Again, I want to make the circle smaller. I go in here and I can add contrast, a lot more contrast in here. I can add structure. There's a little more structure to the mountain. And with the shadows, I can either lighten it, depending on the image, or I can darken it, give it a little more contrast, shadow work on there. And if I kind of like the way that looks, I can take this, and I can copy, and again, paste. And you can see how it's adding contrast to the areas of the mountain and making it pop a little more. So go ahead and do that in certain areas. So there's a whole bunch of them right now. And actually, one thing that's kind of clever on this, so there's 1, 2, it's hard to see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points there. If I wanted to adjust all the points, not adjust them individually, but I want a global adjustment on all of them, all I have to do is kind of click down, click, and come on. Hit the mouse, hit Command A, apologize, Command A, and then I can just adjust one, and all of them will adjust the same way. So I might actually bring the brightness down just a hair. Maybe bring some contrast in that mountain. So if you now if you just click off to the sides, they disappear. And then again, the preview. So there's before and the after, so there's a lot of nice contrast there in the mountains. So I'll go ahead and click OK on that. Give it a second to render. Let me back out of this for a sec. And to get that gradation in the sky, the way I do it now is I go up into the filter, Adobe Camera Raw. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me cancel out there for a sec. I like to make another layer just so I can show you the difference after. I'll go into Adobe Camera Raw. And again, it's now you see there's some highlights that has happened. So I'll just actually grab the highlight slider and I'll drag it to the left to get rid of those red indicators. Basically, all I'm doing is, again, up here, I'm going to click on the gradation tool. And this time, I'm going to click on the top. I'm going to hold the mouse down, hold the shift key down so I get a straight line coming down. Probably go into about right here. Let go. And all I'm going to do is drag the exposure down. And you can see it's adding the darkness to the sky. Now, I've brought it all the way down. I can save this, open it up again, and do another gradation to get it even darker. But as you can see, I think the way this looks, it adds drama to that actual image compared to this. It's boring. This adds drama. And again, I'll show you just quick. You can go right back in and get it even darker. Sometimes I do it several times. Go into the gradation tool, maybe not all the way down this time, maybe to here. And I'll bring the exposure down a little more so it's really nice and dark. Up there, I'll hit OK on that. So you get that nice gradation. I might go into, I'll go into, again, my dodge tool. And in this area, I have it at 33%. Oh, probably about right. I'll increase it just a little bit. I might, yeah, I see it's not showing up as much. This works. It's coming out a little bit. It doesn't. Another thing you can do, and another, actually, let me show you this. Another thing is go back into Camera Raw, use the gradation tool again, and again, what I showed you earlier, click from the bottom up to maybe here, and then instead of going left, go right to increase the exposure in the foreground. I might bring the contrast a little bit down because it's too contrasty in the front. Bring it down a bit, then hit OK. And you've got the a little bit of contrast and depth in the front. So you've got the original, and that was the original one there that came in from Lightroom. So I've added a little bit of contrast to the mountains. Then I've added the gradation in the sky and lightness into the field in front. If I'm happy with that, I could do, you know, I may go in and do some more darkening and touching up in here. But for what I'm demonstrating today, I think that's enough. What I do is I'll go in and just go ahead and save it. Okay, just a minute. The Sony files are massive. Come on. I'll go in. Now Lightroom, it's funny because it showed no red highlights in Photoshop, but it's slightly different in Lightroom. It's still showing a little bit of highlights. Don't worry about this outer part here. That's because that's that white bar from the when we did the HDR, but as you can see, there's a little bit of, it doesn't show it going out, but when you zoom in, but there's a little bit of red there, so I may take the highlights down just a hair until they disappear. And then, because for the life of me, I can't get a horizon straight, I'll go into the angle, and again, this can be done in Adobe Camera Raw. I'll go in and I'll move it and kind of straighten it to where I think it's fine. I'll go in and straighten that, crop it. You can see there's a little white space there because of the way the angle of the image has moved. So I'm going to go into my crop tool again, and it's actually, you can see the way it's been angled, but now I can go in and adjust what I want. I showed you this highlight here. I'm not a fan of the big highlight. I may leave a little bit there. I might bring it in a bit on this side. I really like the dark skies on this. That's probably it. I just hit that, and that's probably my final image. So I may add, let me try, again, it's all, you know, so you might add a little bit more clarity so the mountains pop a little bit more. I don't think contrast would do it any good. It might do good. I don't want to do more blown highlights, but I may do that. But you can see it's much more dramatic. And this, let me again show you, move this over. That was the original, just converted to black and white. And then that was final image that we did in Photoshop. Just simple adding the gradations through Adobe Camera Raw and down from the bottom, and doing some dodging and burning. And then, of course, you can reset this to the original color version and the final black and white version. That's why that's why in black and white, having blue skies, you know, people say, oh, color photography, you know, the average non-photographer, like, oh my God, what a magnificent day. The sky is so blue. Photographers are like, no, we like clouds. And if you can't get the clouds like we have today, like that day, with a lot of blue sky, don't panic about it. Just work with it in black and white. Put a gradation in, you know. You can add clouds if you want to. You know, the software, Skyrim, I know, can add skies and clouds in there. But don't be afraid to shoot on bright sunny days with blue sky, because there's so much drama you can add into the sky with black and white. And that's pretty much it, guys. I know it wasn't the best, most precise black and white processing, but you can see the difference between the original black and white, the original bird, black and white, the original Palouse, the minimalism one, and then the formal minimalism black and white. I'd actually crop this. The developer, I'd actually crop this probably a little more. Just there. And I would give it 5 stars, export it, and put it on Facebook, and hope everyone likes it. So that's pretty much how I process my images. As you see, it's really not that complicated and time-consuming. It's, you know, it's getting a vision of what is nice in black and white and playing with my presets. Excuse me, mouth is dry. Any questions?
There was one question about Nick Silver in the chat.
The Nick.
What's your opinion of Nick Silver effects for black and white processing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Repeat it again.
What is your opinion of Nick Silver effects for black and white processing?
I used to use Nick Silver effects. When it first came out, I thought it's great. I have nothing against it. I think it's great. The presets are really nice. They've actually, I think, done a better job in this latest update with the presets. But I just found it limiting. It's not the way I wanted to process my black and white images after a while, because, you know, as over time you become better at composition, you know, all that sort of thing related to photography. And my black and white changed. I got influenced a lot by a magazine called Lenswork, and I highly recommend, if you want to get a black and white magazine, to get this magazine. I believe it's quarterly. It's called Lenswork. It's absolutely fantastic. And my black and white just changed, and I sat there one day and I said, you know what, I want to create my own black and white work, and I started to do it, and I kind of did the process I was doing there, but then realized that I realized that having to do it to every single picture that I was doing, to do that whole process, I'm like, why don't I just create an action for this? So a few years ago, I created that first action, which a lot of you have. And in the past month, I've created the second action. I just find it easier to do, to just, you know, click the button, the image changes into the black and white that I kind of like. And I can do much simpler and less time processing the image. But I have nothing against Silver FX Pro. I think it's a great program. If people are using it and they're happy with it, yeah, you know, you know, please go ahead and use it. Don't think it's a bad program. I think it's a fantastic program. I just feel that I have more control over my images doing it the way I'm doing it, because I'm not letting Nick control the entire process for me. So I kind of wrote this preset, and I just kind of do it that way. So,
which is again, actually, Geoff, which is what I was wondering. It was like, it seems like with some of the Nick things, when you use the recipe, it's like you push the button, it changes the image, and then you can change a little bit, but it does, you don't have as much control. I was just curious if you used
you don't have a lot of control at all, no, because it's done all it for you. You're like, you know, like, yeah, it's hard to get certain things back in my blowout areas that you don't want blown up, but you can't get it back because of that. You're right, the recipe changes it so much, and I think it's a great area to start in black and white, but I just like to fine tune my images a lot more and have more control over the images.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thanks, Geff.
No?
Really good job.
Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm a bit rusty. I haven't done this presentation or processing presentation for about a year now, so I was a bit rusty in the beginning.
Jeff, I have a question.
Thanks.
Do you do any sharpening, or do you rely on clarity for sharpening?
Well, actually, on the preset it does the sharpening for me. But believe it or not, if I actually do sharpening, I manually sharpen it a little bit. Let me see what I can do here. Let me go back to the bird right here. Lightroom automatically brings in and sharpens a little bit, which is a pain in the butt. But for this, so actually what I use now, and again, I love plugins and I'm playing with other software and stuff like that. I actually enjoy using, I go to edit in, and I actually really like the new Topaz Sharpen AI. So let me click on that and just show you. It's setting, so I hit edit. It's going to open Topaz Sharpen. I really like this program. Now it works really good on these Sony files that I use. So it's just going to go through it. And also their denoise AI is absolutely amazing, this new AI system, software that they have. So highly recommend the Topaz denoise and Topaz AI. So if I go in here now, you can see there's quite a significant amount of sharpening. But this is really close up of the image right here of the bird. And I'm not going to crop the image that much there, but you can see how much sharpening there is. So if I just go and hit apply, it'll take a second. I have to go through its whole shebang. But I really like the way these Topaz sharpening works with these files. I'm really happy with it, and I also really like the denoise aspect. I can show you that. I'm sure I've got a very noisy picture somewhere. But I don't mind noise at all. I know some people just can't stand the thought of having noise in their image. It reminds me of my old film days of Brain. Some noise is not bad. So it does take forever because they are huge files. Come on.
You also should have a very new computer to use that information.
I should have what?
You should have a newer computer. Trying to use those new programs on older computers, like 4 or 5 years old or older, they really drag down.
Oh yeah, you might as well go get a cup of tea, take a shower, I don't know, go out on a date and come back and it's probably done by then. But yeah, definitely need new computers. You definitely need processing power and RAM for these new programs because they're so AI intensive. Okay, so it is done. No, it's not. Come on, hurry up. Sorry guys. Got the color spinning wheel. There we go. So now it's done. So it's actually what I like about it. It brings in a separate file. So it's very hard to see. Let me see if I can blow it up here. You can see how much sharper it is. And it's actually so sharp that it's created a little bit of red highlights there. So I might just push that down. But if you're seeing the whole image, I'm back. There we go. You can see the. You're not going to notice this dramatically, but it is much sharper.
Right.
And there's another way. There's also another version of this you can do. Go back to the original one. You can edit in. You can also do just Topaz Studio. It's amazing what Topaz Studio can do too. For this, let me just show you this quick. So we're in here with the bird, and I just go to I don't use any of this preset rubbish on the back, on the side here. I just go to adjustments. There's a whole bunch of different things, but I just go to AI Clear. And I hit AI Clear. It'll blow it up 100%. And so somehow they blur it. I don't think it's. I think they cheat a little bit on this. But go in and you can see how dramatic it is. So the original. And then with AI Clear, it's much sharper. I hit save. And it's actually much quicker than AI Clear. Come back here, the image will come in. So now this one is done in AI with AI Clear. Okay, let me show you. This is the original. This is with AI Sharpen. And then this is with AI Clear. So it's not as crisp as AI Sharpen, but it kind of takes a look at the entire image. And the trouble with AI Sharpen, sometimes it'll sharpen the whole background, which you really don't want it to do. But AI Clear will look into the whole image and just sharpen the main subjects and the main pixel areas that work the best for it. So yeah, I really like these programs. And then, you know, from there, like I said, I go into my preset like this. And now that I've done the AI Clear on this, if I go into my preset, it actually over sharpens it. So in that way, again, over here with the clarity, because that's the default for the preset I did, I'll actually go and take it back to 0. So that extra sharpness has come off, and I may actually go in here further down. And again, this can be done in Adobe Camera Raw. Bring the sharpening down a little bit here. It's still going to be crisp and nice, but it's not over sharpened. And just from here, I start working on the image again, creating those super dark backgrounds, or just leave it like this. It looks quite nice like this too. So, highly recommend the AI Clear. I recommend Denoise AI and Sharpening AI. Great programs. So, any more? I'm sure people want to go. What time is it there? Oh, it's 9 o'clock for you guys.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's dinner time for us.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, look at that. 1 minute to spare.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was really great.
You're welcome.
And I'll
thank you, everyone.
I did record it. Yep.
Oh,
so I'll post that on the Facebook. I'll post the link in by tomorrow.
Right. And Sam, make sure you share my email to all the members that were here tonight or who didn't show up. If they're interested in, I'll send you both. Let me know if you want both presets, or there's just the newest one or the old one, whichever one. Just let me know, and then let me know if you also want it for Lightroom or Photoshop, or Lightroom and Photoshop again. I can send both. So. And actually, I don't even think you need the preset. Well, just for people that don't use Lightroom, yes, I'll have the preset for Photoshop. But if you have the preset loaded again in Lightroom, if you go to Adobe Camera Raw, you'll get the exact Lightroom presets that you have, the presets you have in Lightroom in Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop. But if you only show Photoshop users, I'd be happy to send you that preset.
Okay.
The Photoshop is an action, right?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I don't know why they changed the name. Yes, I'm sorry. You're right, Jeff. Lightroom's a preset, Photoshop's an action. And they'll be labeled different, so you'll see that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yep. And hopefully I'll see just as many people for our competition in 2 weeks. And don't forget about whatever, Mid-Atlantic Photovisions, everybody. Okay. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
I like your hair, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.